Good afternoon, good morning to some of you, good evening to all of you as well. This is Jaime Rivera from Pocketnow. We are at our editorial roundtable for WWDC 2015, which just ended a couple of minutes ago. There are a ton of things to talk about. And as always, we're pressured with time. We're going to try to keep this under 30 minutes so that you can all get more coverage, as obviously iOS 9, the developer preview, is already live right now. OS 10 developer preview is also live, and you can bet we're downloading that to be able to test it out and give you full coverage on all the content and on the updates that are available. So let's just start with a little roll call to our contributing editor, Mr. Jairo Huseman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Doing good.
Awesome, awesome. We also got in the black, Mr. our editorial director, Mr. Michael Fisher. How are you?
Well, I'm wonderful, Jaime. I have excellent internet speeds and a wonderfully expensive computer and even a sound booth, but Google Hangouts, well, doesn't work regardless. So that's why I'm a glowing orb on your screen. Good to see you, everybody.
Well, we can't see you, so it would be good to see you, too.
I can see you.
And our chief news editor, Mr. Steven Schenk. How are you, sir?
I'm excited to talk about Drake and only about Drake, so I hope we're all on the same page here.
Okay, let me try to understand this. I was meaning to ask you, are you a Drake fan?
I only like Drake as the actor on Degrassi, which I'm very sad to see is going off the air after 14 seasons, but apparently he makes music too these days. Who knew?
Anyways, I am not a Drake fan, but I am aspiring to be, and my son is in front of me, and he's just looking at me funny. What's wrong? I mean,
Jaime, how can you not be a Drake fan after the performance today? He was so eloquent on stage. He only used as many words as he needed, and it was so succinct.
To talk about his life experiences and say nothing. That was amazing. That was really amazing.
But that vintage jacket was pretty sweet. We all want one of those.
It was. Yeah, there's no denying that.
Okay, so disclaimer, guys. Since we are so short in time, please give us your Q&As. We would love to hear what you think, and we don't promise that we'll be able to cover as many as we'd like, mainly because of our difficulties right now, but you can bet we will try to do as well as we can. And if not, we've got a ton of coverage later this week to go through these. So why don't we start with Mr. Steven Schenk? Let's talk about OS.
Sure. Apple led us into the event. It wasted no time at all. It jumped right into the desktop side of things with the next version of OS X. It's building off that Yosemite name from the previous generation, giving us El Capitan, that big rock formation. The primary focuses on the El Capitan announcement were about performance and the user interface. And Apple first started telling us about some of the UI changes. It's going to, well, we're going to get to in a minute some of the iOS 9 stuff with the split screen view. But split screen was also a big part of the desktop experience here, and how you arrange apps on screen. Apple talked about the split view to allow side-by-side interaction with apps. And if just getting two things on screen at the same time isn't enough for you, you're going to be able to set up these things called spaces by dragging apps up into your mission control bar. You'll be able to group them together and sort of have like a virtual desktop experience switching between them. There's a lot to cover here. It talked about little UI things, new gestures in certain apps, like in Mail, deleting messages, multiple messages at once. Cool little stuff like shaking the mouse to when you wiggle to see where your cursor is. It'll get bigger, become a little more visually prominent. We're all over the place here. We saw the introduction of the new Notes app, and that's going to be on OS X as well as on, I believe, on iOS. On OS X, you'll use it to gather together information from multiple apps, just dragging stuff into place, dumping it into Notes, and you can sort of use it as a checklist and go back and make sure you're getting the tasks done that you need to. UI changes were all around. It talked about, like Spotlight, you're going to be able to resize the window. Spotlight itself is getting a little bit of a feature tweak. It's learning to pull information from your data sources, giving information not just about content that's stored on your computer locally within your apps, but able to pull up things like news and weather, sports scores, sort of thing we've seen from virtual assistants in the past. Besides the UI changes, and there's a lot more, I'm just brushing the surface there. We heard about some performance stuff. In general, it's the latest and greatest, so we should expect things to be faster, more responsive. Apple talked about app load times, transition times between active apps as being improved. In particular, and a lot of this, some of it got very dev-focused, so it's not going to be as interesting to more novice, user-focused people out there. But Metal, which we already heard about last year at WWDC for iOS, is going to be front and center with OS X, El Capitan. Metal gives developers very low-level access to CPU, especially GPU hardware, allowing games to do some very impressive things, and more importantly, doing these impressive things while not making the system crawl to a halt as a result. So we'll be seeing Metal baked into the OS, so general UI is going to benefit from this, switching away from OpenGL towards Metal, so to improve draw times to screen. Generally, things will look smoother, more fluid, and we can all appreciate that. Availability, I guess actually we're going to be trying to get our hands on this ASAP. It's starting today as the dev preview. Apple introduced, it's been building upon a public availability of previews. iOS just made that big step forward earlier this year, but it was already around the desktop for a while, and Apple's going to continue that with El Capitan. The public beta won't be available until a little later this summer, and then finally by fall, everything will be ready to go live for everyone. Of course, free upgrades to existing users. And we're going to be learning more about this in the weeks to come as we play with the dev preview, the public beta ourselves. We're bringing you more and more news about all these improvements, changes, and great things to look forward to.
Now tell me something, is it just me, or did Apple borrow a little from Windows 8 and now Windows 10 with the whole snapping of Windows all around? What do you guys think of that?
Look, I've been downloading so many tools on both of my Macs trying to get similar functions like the snap feature, so I'm just really glad to see that that's finally making its way here.
See, I really hate that snap feature. I like to drag my windows so they're mostly off-screen and sort of like a virtual desktop that's bigger than my actual screen. And when things click into the side, I find it distracting. But at least it's there as an option. For if you guys like it, it'll be here built into El Capitan.
Definitely.
Yeah, if you wanted a sample of some world-class trolling, all you have to do is follow Adam Dowd on Twitter. Every single thing Apple unveiled, it was like, wow, this was seen on another OS 6 months ago, or 2 years ago.
Radio, that's like from the 1920s, man. I can't believe that.
I don't know. I guess I have been so frustrated by OS 10 over the years that I've been using it, over the way it handles Windows, that I'm actually happy that they did this update, because you never know what size the windows are going to pop up, whereas in Windows, it's always been smarter to do it. But again, that's my opinion.
So maybe there is a little catch-up going on here, but it still seems like a worthwhile improvement that Apple users will be happy to see arrive.
Definitely, definitely. Another major update that got announced today, and we were definitely waiting for it, was iOS 9. iOS 9 brings a lot of major changes to the Core OS's foundation, and it focuses on 3 specific points. Number 1, extending battery life. Number 2, improving performance. And number 3, enhancing security. But it also brings some added intelligence. Apple has really neglected Siri over the last couple of years, ever since it was announced with iOS 6 and then just completely ignored, or sorry, not iOS 6, but with the iPhone 4S years ago. Siri gets a lot of major improvements with intelligence throughout the UI without compromising privacy. Apple made a big issue about everything that's doing for privacy. But, for example, they're mentioning that it's 40% faster when it comes to responses. It also has interactive responses. Like, for example, you could ask it detailed information like, give me information, give me the photos that I took in Utah 3 weeks ago, and it'll give you those specific photos on your album, which is extremely cool. So it is also context sensitive. Once you get a response, you can also dig deeper within and keep asking Siri questions. Now, this context feature has been existent since iOS 7, but it's getting better with iOS 9. Another thing is that, and I know that a lot of you are waiting for this, yes, it looks like Google Now in the fact that you can now swipe to the left from the home screen. Yes, Stephen, I know. I could see you there. You're doing that.
Wasn't that already in iOS 6 or something? Couldn't you already swipe left directly into the Spotlight search or something?
It ended with iOS 5, I believe.
Okay.
It ended with iOS 5. So it was something that came out with iOS 3, I believe it was, and then it got removed with iOS 5, and so now it's back. And then for me, it was a smarter idea. But the reason why I'm saying this looks a lot like Google Now is because it's proactive. So you swipe from the left, it gives you your frequent contacts that you always contact. And I apologize for the noise, everybody. I'm at a coffee shop because of power issues.
You're doing a great job. You're powering through. You're doing great, Jaime.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, so, for example, it's proactive in things like giving you contact information, giving you place information from wherever you are. For example, if you plug in your headphones, it'll give you the option to start a playlist. You can automatically add calendar information if you get a mail appointment, which is something Google Now currently does. And for example, there is also an API for search, which is really cool. So this allows third-party developers to use the API and give Siri different commands to be able to provide you with information. So it's just being called the proactive feature. It's not really, I don't think that's a final name. I don't know if you guys felt it that way, but that's pretty much what proactive is. I don't know if you guys have any insight on or thoughts about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important that Apple get proactive right. It looks like this is one of those things that Apple was playing some major catch up on, because Google was so far out ahead of this predictive intelligence graphing stuff with Google Now that Apple really needed to come back and kind of hit hard on this. And it looks like they have. If everything works as well as Apple says it will, which actually is, I mean, it is possible. Apple does release stuff that works as advertised a lot of the time, then proactive will sort of level the playing field. I also had somebody on Twitter mention to me very helpfully that this can index the device, whereas Google Now cannot, which is sort of helpful in a way. That's a generalized way of putting it, but it's helpful in terms of like, hey, read me that last text, which you can do on Windows Phone, you can do on iOS, but Google Now will just sort of stare at you dumbly unless I'm thinking.
Okay, can somebody remind me what medication is proactive? Because Hayato's asking me to get Neutrogena. What the hell is that?
Skincare.
Yeah, that's like an acne medication, right?
It's the one that Mandy Moore and
right. No wonder you know about this stuff, Hayato. You're still in that phase.
Oh yeah. Dick burn.
But anyways, okay. There's a lot more with iOS 9. First of all, Stephen already mentioned the notes updates. We're not going to go into that. But Apple Maps gets updated. This also applies to OS 10. It gets public transit. It gets, but not for all cities. There are only 12 cities to start. But this whole Siri proactive thing digs deep into Apple Maps. It allows you to get context information, and what's cool about it is, like, for example, if you want to commute through the subway and you ask it for directions, it'll give you walking directions, and it'll tell you if you will arrive on time to catch a train, for example, which proves to be useful. It's something we're going to have to prove. Something else that's new is Apple's News. It's a new application. It's got a couple of publishers. It's even got free articles from the New York Times, which you have to pay for. It's adding a lot of curated content, and yes, we're going to figure out a way to get on Apple News just to give you another option to read our content. The biggest update to iOS 9 was really iPad uses. Finally, Apple brings different improvements to the iPad, and I'm surprised that Apple didn't do this for the iPhone 6 Plus. But for example, because I don't know if I'm mistaken, but I didn't really. So for example, you can now multitask on the iPad. You're now allowed to have a split screen multitasking, and at the same time, this works in real time. So it works pretty much like Samsung tablets. Only the advantage is this is dug deep into the OS, so you're not limited to specific applications being able to do this. Apparently, you'll be able to do it with every single application that applied core layout as part of the developer tool. So it really depends on developers, but I'm sure that they'll get on the wagon immediately.
If they've already adopted auto layout and size classes, then it'll just work. It shouldn't require much work at all.
Another thing that's there is picture-in-picture video. So, for example, you're playing a video, you can just snap it out and watch your video as you're doing something else, which is really cool. And the only problem with this is that, sadly, it's only going to be available on the iPad Air 2 when it comes to the side-by-side snapping. You can pull out your notes application, for example, from the side and write notes as you're doing things, but you won't be able to snap things if you have an older iPad. And I'm surprised that the iPad Mini 2 did not get the iPad Mini with Retina display. The newer one didn't get this feature. It seems that it's only available in the iPad Air 2, right, guys?
I wonder if it's because of the RAM.
Yeah.
Doesn't the Mini 3 not have only have 512?
It could
No,
be.
I thought the Mini 3. I thought that the Mini.
2 gigabytes.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, that's the difference there. Yeah. That's probably it. That's all right. Jaime, you were just saying like that video snap feature is so compelling. When you get a notification in a video and you tap it and the video just auto minimizes. The fact that is going to work on almost all of the iPads is
no, it's only working on 4 of them is the problem.
Air 2, Mini 2, and Mini 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a 3-way split here with iPads that can upgrade to iOS 9, those that get the side column and picture-in-picture, and then just the Air 2 getting the full-on split screen.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is a
exactly.
bit of a fragmentation thing. Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. Another thing that we're getting with the iPad keyboard, and I find this to be really cool, is that now you can turn the iPad keyboard into a touchpad. So you can pretty much navigate. I didn't see a mouse cursor anywhere in the way you can navigate by using this as a trackpad, but you can select things really quickly and just it turns into a gesture keyboard. I really can't wait to give it a try, and I know you're going to be looking at this in your video, Michael, tomorrow with comparing it.
Comparing it, yeah. Are you doing a hands-on?
I'm doing the hands-on. You're doing the comparison with Android M.
With Android M. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
That's going to be really cool. So yes, everyone, we have a lot of coverage coming up. Other enhancements with iOS 9. I'm going to try to close this down quickly. We have improvements to battery life. We finally get a low power mode. This is something that iPhones have needed but have desperately not had for the longest time. Apparently, the battery improvements on their own give you an extra 1 hour battery, which is great. We'll give it a try. And this low power mode apparently extends your battery up to 3 hours. Other things like, for example, two-step authentication for iCloud are coming for security. And even better, with software updates, you will now not need to start deleting applications to have up to 4.6 gigabytes available. If you have 1.3 gigs available on your devices, you'll be able to apply software updates immediately. So the developer preview is out today. You will be getting a consumer preview in July, and you can expect iOS 9 by later in the fall. And that's all of iOS 9. Anything else?
Wow. Slow clap. That was a lot of material to get through there, Jaime. Nice work. We have no time to stop and reflect on that, sadly. I think, is it my turn to talk about the watch?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Very good. Well, Apple kicked off its discussion of watchOS 2.0 with a retrospective of the App Store. There have been 100 billion apps downloaded from the Apple App Store. 1.5 million app titles total exist in the App Store. Apple cited a figure of $30 billion paid out to devs, and an interesting figure from the video, 98% of all Fortune 500 companies have an iOS app. So Apple, once again, reminding us of how important their App Store is to them and sort of everyone else. And Tim Cook had a great quote. He said, "For us, this is a giant moment. This is how we felt when we launched the App Store." And that was in 2008. And this is, of course, referring to the Apple Watch. We believe in technology designed for the wrist. And this notion that apps will somehow legitimize the notion of the smartwatch is something that I'm going to be thinking about next week and maybe writing about. We can talk about it on the podcast as well. I want to divide this into 3 categories: things that should have been there already, things that are actually pretty cool, and some new developer access. So things that should have been there already coming in watchOS 2.0. Native apps. Formerly, the watch had to rely on the phone to run the logic portion of the app, which led to a lot of lag and sluggishness, whatever. We're going to move a lot of that app logic from the phone to the watch in this version. So lag, be gone. Probably should have happened with version 1, because then it would have saved it a lot of bad reviews with laggy, slow apps on the watch. New watch faces will also be available, including apps where you can watch faces where you can put your photo up there and your photo album, let it cycle through photos. Not terribly exciting, but good to have it there. Time-lapse face as well, if you take a lot of time lapses. Developers can now make their own complications. So you can show your flight time, show your home entertainment system status, your car charge status if you have an electric car, sports scores. You can put all those, you can add those to the already existent complications, such as weather, sunrise and sunset times, and all that kind of stuff. Put it right on the face where you want it to go on the face, and it'll be a variety of faces will support these new complications. So there'll also be a variety of templates. Still not. It's going to be a while for the Apple Watch to catch up to the variety of watch faces on Android Wear, and Pebble for that matter, I think. But it's always good to have more tools there. There's also a nightstand mode when charging. This is all still stuff that should have been there at launch, if you ask me. But you can stick the thing on its side, and you've got a little alarm clock face, and when it's charging, and that's great. Friends, you can add a friend right from the watch. You can reply to a mail using your voice. FaceTime audio support comes in alongside phone calls, and now the transit app updates will also hit the watch too. So right on your wrist, you'll be able to, if you're a mass transit user like I am, you'll be able to see transit times and departure times, navigating step by step, and so on. Those are the things that should have been there from the beginning, I thought. Things that are actually pretty cool. New feature called Time Travel that'll allow you to, when you're looking at your watch face, rotate the digital crown and shows you more. If you rotate it forward, it'll show you calendar appointments that are in the near future. If you rotate it backward, it'll show you appointments you had earlier today and earlier this week and all that stuff. It'll also move all the other complications on the face. So you spin the digital crown and you can see what the time will be in, say, Barcelona, not just now, but in 6 hours from now, what the temperature will be then, and so on. In addition to that bedside mode, you've got an alarm clock, and when the watch is lying on its side, if you don't have a charging pedestal for it, which it boggles my mind that Apple hasn't built one of those, but when it's lying on its side, its buttons are up top, so the digital crown becomes a snooze button, the other button becomes a off button, which is cool. Siri-triggered glances, say, Siri, show me the Instagram glance, which is pretty cool. The wallet view will make its way to the watch, as will Apple Pay support. Well, that's already there, but now with the new wallet view, it'll all come together into a nice little other reason you don't have to pull your phone out of your pocket, which is the whole point. And you can now connect to, you will be able to connect to known Wi-Fi networks automatically. That's the kind of the rundown of the two main categories of stuff. And finally, developers will get access to a whole lot of other stuff in watchOS 2 to build way cooler stuff. They'll get access to the watch speakerphone, Bluetooth audio, video playback, HealthKit access, HomeKit access, accelerometer access. All that is going to be in the is in beta today. It is available for download to devs today, the beta version. It'll be available in the fall to everybody for free. And I'm really excited to try it out. Except I have to buy an Apple Watch first, because Jaime, you have mine or yours.
I know. But at least out of everything that was announced, I'm really looking forward to the health and fitness updates, particularly because if you're not using Apple Watches or Apple's own health and fitness apps, everything is just terrible. Like Nike Plus is terrible, everything is terrible, and they will now be able to create native applications that don't really rely on the phone, which is great. Really
righto.
Yeah, and having that live access to the heart rate sensor data should empower some interesting new apps too, right?
Yeah, particularly. Go ahead, Michael.
I'm just really excited the digital crown is getting more action, because I do think that's one of the cooler hardware elements of the watch, and it's been really underused so far, and I'm really glad they're starting to leverage that for more stuff.
I heard them announce that API, and I can just see Michael's eyes lighting up.
You know that's right.
Yeah, no, the Apple Watch is bringing a lot of cool stuff, but Apple decided to finish things with Apple Music. How about if you run us quickly through that, Hayato?
Yeah, so Apple Music is basically it's going to be a new subscription service, kind of taking on services like Spotify, with a pretty similar price tag. It's going to be $10 a month for the one-user subscription, and then it'll be another $5 a month, so a total of $15 can get you up to 6 people on the same account. So everybody can save some money there, and versus Spotify, where I think the $15 plan is just 2 users. And with Apple Music, you're basically getting access to any of the music on the iTunes Store, as well as any of your own ripped CDs. And then there's the new feature that they're introducing called Beats One, which is basically a live 24-hour radio service where they have curated a couple of they've gathered a couple of the top name DJs across the world that just kind of put together these stations. They host a couple radio shows. There will be some exclusive music, some interviews with artists, and things like that going on. So sort of a little public radio kind of thing going on there. And then they're also introducing, kind of reintroducing Ping from a couple of years ago in a way. And basically, it's going to be a platform where artists can upload exclusive things to the service, like, say, their lyrics or some photos from the backstage at one of their shows. And fans can interact with the things that the artist posts on there, so they can share them across social media. They can comment on them, and the artist can reply back. So it's just a little interaction between the artists and the actual listeners themselves. So a lot of the Apple Music idea is just to sort of make music a bit more accessible, a bit more social, and then also just to give you a bit more of a human sort of a mix instead of just giving a shuffle system like iTunes or Spotify does. There's no virtual radio. It's all the stations you're listening to are actually being handpicked by these DJs. And then Apple Music will be launching for iOS devices June 30th, coming to Android devices later. I think they said this fall.
Yeah, and Windows as well, I believe.
And Windows as well. And this is going to be their first. This is going to be Apple's first Android app, actually. So That'll be kind of interesting to see. I'm not sure if they're going to do anything like material design on there, or maybe they'll just stick with sort of their own iOS style design. Who
All
knows?
those red
Knowing Apple is going to be iOS design.
It probably will be, yeah.
Yeah, knowing Apple.
Hayato, can I ask you? I know you touched on this before, but this is the question that's been burning a hole in my head ever since they talked about this for a half hour on stage. What is this going to tear you away from Spotify, you personally? And if not, why? Who is it going to take away from Spotify? Who's going to sign up for this? Who's already using Spotify? Who's going to ditch Spotify for this? Is there any other way I can phrase that question? No. So why don't you just answer it?
I don't think I'm going to switch away from it. I obviously haven't used it yet, so I can't say for sure. But if it's the same price as Spotify and I'm already accustomed to it, I've already got all of my music and my playlists on Spotify. I'm probably just going to stick with what I've got. I'm really happy with it, and it works across all of the different platforms and services that I use. But I think Apple Music is going to be a really good way to get a lot of people to switch either from Spotify or, for new users to choose Apple Music versus Spotify, mostly because it's got a free 3-month trial at the beginning. So a lot of people who are still kind of shaky on the whole idea of paying a monthly subscription for music streaming, they can kind of get some exposure to that for 3 months without having to pay anything. And also because of the family plan, I mean, like I said, $15 for 2 people on Spotify versus $15 for 6 people. It's
No, I'm serious. Even Rithvik wrote me recently. He's like, "Hey, are we gonna have a Pocketnow family account?" I was like, that's not a bad idea. Let him have. But yeah, I mean, I could see a lot of people doing that. I mean, 6 people for $15 is crazy.
Yeah,
think about
that's a really awesome price.
Can I just ask one more question before we move off of Apple Music? That the radio stations are going to be exclusive to Apple Music. There's going to be no way to get them aside from having an Apple Music subscription. Is that right?
No, they mentioned that the Beats One is going to be available even without paying for the Apple Music subscription.
Yeah,
I see.
I believe so, and that's really what I'm. So the big question that I have left is, okay, is Apple Music going to be a separate app from your music application, or will this music application receive more functionality if you pay? That's what I'm waiting to see the beta to see what exactly is it that we're getting.
I think it's going to be the latter because I've seen I saw a couple of little screenshots and images of the home screen before they actually launched the app, and it just says music on there. So I doubt they would just make a second app called Music on the home screen and just kind of make it confusing. I'm assuming it's just
Could be.
Yeah.
But sorry. Anything else that you got left?
The only thing I'm wondering, something I really like about Spotify, and I'm sure there are other services like Rdio that probably do this as well. Spotify has a sort of a collaborative way of making playlists, so I can create a public playlist or just a private one between, say, my fiance and I. And if if I want to throw some songs on there, and then she wants to add some extra things, then it's all going to be onto one list. And I don't know if I haven't seen anything pointing to whether or not Apple Music will do the same thing. And I really like having that feature, so I'd be pretty sad to see that missing.
Yeah, and most likely Spotify will bring the heat. I mean, if Apple is allowed to drop the price for family options and bring all these features, then I'm sure, because it truly is a cool service.
I love Spotify. It's I use it every single day, so it's going to be tough to replace it for me.
Same here.
Notwithstanding, though, I think Apple has its work cut out for it in convincing users that it has a more feature-packed alternative than the Spotifys and the Pandoras out there. Because maybe doing things a little bit differently or putting a spin on what other services offer, but it sounds a lot like we're hearing things we've heard over and over again.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Helping of deja vu as well, Steven. So I'm with you on that.
And guys, we are.
What was the one? The Tribal that just launched a few months back.
Tidal,
yeah. Which is, it made this big point. We're doing things differently, but everyone's hearing it sounds exactly the same, and it's pretty much crashed and burned. So.
Well, it's $20 a month. Most people aren't gonna pay that.
Yeah. Well, Apple's got a leg up there.
Seriously. Gentlemen, we're running out of time, so how about if we get some final thoughts of what are your impressions with the event, what things that you liked most or least, and how about if we begin with Steven?
For me, the iPad multitasking was the biggest deal by far. I know it'd been rumored for over and over by now, but I still didn't really have it on my short list of things I really expected Apple to announce. So when they did, I was impressed. The way that it's going to easily support software without the way we see it on Android. Yes, there are some multi-window options available, but they're just not very attractive because of the limitations involved. So I think Apple has really blown away the competition with the broad support that apps are going to have for this. Even if the hardware support is limited, it's only going to get better. I'm sure the next generation of iPad hardware, all of them, hopefully even the Mini included, will support this. Maybe this might even be setting the stage for that plus size version that we've been talking about forever. But clearly, as Apple's established that it doesn't need a 12-something inch iPad in order to make this work. So I'm really curious to see how this works in action, if it's as functional as Apple's made it out to be, but it's easily the most impressive thing here.
Nice, nice. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, mine's a bit more of a tactical observation. Steven sort of stole mine in terms of the feature load, but there's a broader one here which is interesting. Apple is really doubling down and sort of retrenching in its positioning itself as the anti-Google. It used this event to reinforce the fact that it says it cares about your privacy in this sort of direct affront to Google's information gathering tactics that have that Tim Cook started out, I think, a week ago at another event, just slamming Google all over the place for its perceived privacy invasions. In specific, it was talking about the proactive assistant, which I think is one of the coolest things announced here, and about how it is going to function much like Google Now, but without associating with your Apple ID. All the stuff will stay on device, like Microsoft already did with Cortana, and it'll stay on device. It's not going to go to the cloud. It's not linked to other Apple services. It's not shared with third parties, and your Apple ID. It uses randomized IDs for. Sorry, I just got distracted by an IM. But the point is, oh, shut up, whoever you are, shut up.
It's me,
God,
dude. It's me.
So yeah, no, just another opportunity for Tim Cook to come out and say, or the whole Apple team to come out and say, hey, you know those guys in Mountain View who sell all your data? Well, we're not them, and that's why you should buy our stuff and not theirs. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see not only what Apple does with that going forward, but also how consistently they're going to be able to deliver on that promise of being your new best friend for privacy's sake.
Particularly after the whole scandal with the whole Apple ID leaks. Remember that. So I think that they did need to do something anyways. But anyways, thanks. And how about you, Hayato?
On a less philosophical note, I'm going to have to kind of level with Steven there. I think that the multitasking was sort of a blindside for me. I really didn't expect that at all to be announced today. So I'm really glad that they did that. I was very impressed with the implementation. I'm also looking forward to checking out Apple Music. The only thing I was really disappointed about today was they when they showed the new features with the keyboard, I was kind of excited, thinking that they were going to finally add some gesture typing, like swipe onto the stock iOS keyboard, because I had an iPhone 6 for a couple of days and was messing around with some keyboards, and SwiftKey for iOS doesn't do it for me. I don't like any of the third-party keyboards I've used, so I'd really like to see gesture typing make its way to just the stock iOS keyboard, and it's still not there. But it's a minor complaint. I'm still pretty impressed with what happened today, so I can't really complain too much.
Nice. And, I'm actually going to follow you on that takeaway to end with my final notes. I guess we were expecting a very conservative iOS 9, and actually I find this to be 10 times cooler than iOS 8. And I feel that it's even more feature-packed than on Android M, but you can expect Michael Fisher's full comparison as of tomorrow. We are definitely going to have a hands-on video very soon as well. We have to, the servers are jammed. That's going to be a little difficult, but we are working on it. In addition, you can obviously expect the Pocketnow Daily with full coverage of everything we saw today. Our website is already packed with as much news as you can imagine, with all the details of everything that got announced, and you can expect that the Pocketnow Weekly will cover everything in depth later this week. So we've got a ton of coverage. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me in the show floor. It was a good show. It was a great editorial roundtable as well. everyone, thank you for your Q&As. We apologize for not being able to cover more, but we are a little challenged with time. But again, we have a lot more content coming up to cover up for that. So thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us, and follow us on social media. We will be covering more stuff very soon. See you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.